What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us here for a very special live Thursday edition of Fantasy MLB Today. We are a Sports Ethos presentation, and I'm your host, Joe Orrico. You guys can find me on Twitter at Joe Orrico99, but it's more important right now that you guys go check out Ethos Fantasy BB. We're launching our draft guide over there. A lot of fun content is coming out on that side, so you guys should definitely be giving it a follow and checking out sportsethos.com as well for all of our stuff right from the source. But today, we are doing another team preview. We're staying in California after doing the Athletics yesterday. We're talking about a bit of a better team, and we have a couple of great friends of mine in the industry here to talk about it with us. Two mentors of mine, too, who have been just fantastic to me over this last year of being in the industry. And it's really great to talk with both of them. They are involved in so many different projects and different websites, different podcasts. They're going to tell you all about it in just a second. Justin Mason and KC Bubba, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing well.
Doing fantastic. Talking about the best team in Major League Baseball, baby.
And it's awfully nice of Joe to let us come off after the A's. Nothing can go wrong from there.
Yeah, it's just we're just moving on up.
Yep. It's definitely an improvement. Definitely a bit of an improvement here, a bit of a rosier subject. A team that's, they're coming off of not a great season, but 2021, maybe it was a flash in the pan, maybe it wasn't, but it shows that they're capable of just having some kind of crazy, randomly great season. So it might not be all dark skies over San Francisco, even though it hasn't been the greatest off season for you guys. There's been a couple of near misses with free agents. Judge and Correa. It was a bit of a weird, messy situation with a couple of different guys. But before we really get into that, I'm going to let you guys tell us all about the great stuff you got going on. Bubba, why don't you start off with letting us know about all your great work?
Well, you just follow me on Twitter at BDEntrek, and you'll get all the goodies there, ENTREK. But the Bench with Bubba podcast coming at you multiple times a week. I got Bubba and the Bat Flips on Tuesday, Bubba and the Bloom on Thursdays. Quick hits for DFS will be back during the regular season, and then writing at Gaining the Edge Fantasy. It's a Patreon with Michael Simeone, Mike Curlin, and Jorge Montanez. FantasyPros.com, which I found out recently. I have a new friend over there as well. And I think that's and Baseball HQ. Gosh, it's always something. Baseball HQ. I do some golf stuff. That's baseball. So just follow me on Twitter. I tweet way too much about what I do and not much else.
You do great work. Bubba and the Bloom is one of my favorite podcasts. Bench with Bubba in general. Really appreciate when you've had me on there. It's been a great time. And especially when you got my buddy Ryan Bloomfield on. Those are always great shows. But Justin, why don't you let us know about everything you got going on right now?
I don't got much going on. I mean, it's
pretty
quiet time of year. Let's see. I'm on the Sleeper in the Bus podcast. I'm the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast. TGFBI podcast going to be starting up here again in the near future as well. I write daily at Fangraphs. I'm writing regularly now at Fantasy Pros with Bubba. And then I own friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Potapalooza's coming up in about 10 days or something like that.
Right
so
around the corner.
I'm gonna have the schedule worked out tonight. So that'll be all ready. You can enter to win awesome prizes. We're going to be doing a 2-day live stream event for Potapalooza. It's a fantastic time. And then TGFBI kicks off here in just a little less than 2 weeks. So that's going to be an absolute blast as well. And you can still get in TGFBI satellite leagues if you aren't in TGFBI. Win your way into next year's. Go to TGFBI.com to sign up for those. So not much going on.
Not much going on. Just one or two things. I'm very excited for TGFBI. It's my first year going to be involved in it, and it should be a lot of fun. Potapalooza, I sent you in the thing late. We'll talk later. I'd love to be on if there's still availability.
Oh, no, I'll get you on, buddy.
Don't worry. In the form.
There's always room. There's always room.
Graphic. But yeah, I'm happy to participate if there's room. But we have a fun topic tonight still with the San Francisco Giants. There are some players, despite, like we said off the top, some disappointments in free agency, but still there's a lot of things to like with this team. We're going to go through the lineup from top to bottom. We're going to talk about the starting rotation with a couple of names that I really love, and we're going to touch on the bullpen at the end. But let's start off with the top of the lineup. And Thairo Estrada. I like the projections. I like what he did last year quite a bit. Justin, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on Thairo Estrada for this upcoming season? Do you like his outlook? Do you like his draft price? Where do you stand on him right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be kind of a sad podcast for me because I'm not going to talk about a lot of guys I really love in terms of fantasy as much as I love the Giants as a team. But Thairo Estrada is like one of the few exceptions on this team. He's eligible at both second and shortstop. Looks like he's going to lead off. I know that the Giants have been known for their platooning and being frustrating for fantasy players, but they don't have the depth that they once did, especially in the infield. And so I think Thairo Estrada is going to play pretty much every day. He may not play at the same spot every day, but I think he's going to play every day. And I think he's kind of a sneaky good value right now in the market. So Thairo Estrada does a little bit of everything. And so he's not going to hurt you in any particular spot. He's going to lead off. And so it could be a really sneaky source of runs. So I like Thairo Estrada a lot.
I like him a lot too. I mean, I've seen a lot of people saying that they don't think he'll be able to repeat what he did last year. The projections seem to think he'll do pretty much exactly the same thing when you look across the board, maybe a couple less steals depending on where you look. But the outlook's pretty good. Bubba, do you share the same sentiments as Justin?
Yeah, I'm Team Tyro over here as well. I've been drafting him in a lot of places over the last couple weeks. ADP is like 177 in Draft Champions. Totally good with that. He might even gain outfield eligibility at one point in time. They're talking about throwing him out there. When I hear teams talk about stuff like that, that just shows how much they want to keep him on the field. They're finding other places for him to go, kind of what Justin mentioned. And you got to think about the Giants, the depth Justin mentioned also. As much as we've loved Brandon Crawford for years, he ain't playing 162 games. There's holes at second base, even third base. Like we'll talk about David Villar, but who knows if that'll pan out for the whole season. They're going to find a way to keep Thairo on the field. And people point to like the barrel rates and hard hit rates aren't ideal. They're not great, but they're good enough for me when I see a guy with a 109 max EV that shows when he does hit the ball hard, he hits it very hard. He's got that ability in his bat, and he's young. He's 26, going to be 27. So I'm a big fan of what we see here. And, you know, it could be coach speak, and we'll hear it from a lot of coaches. Kapler, one of the first things he said at FanFest is the size of the bases, they are going to run and run and run this year, and Thairo will be a main point of that. So I like Thairo a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised if he puts 20 stolen bases on the board again. So, yeah, I like him.
Especially because he's like the only one on that team that can really run.
True, without like a hip popping out or something.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, that's true. There's nobody really.
And I want to echo Justin's initial statement. As much as I love the Giants, there ain't much on this team, especially offensively for fantasy.
It's a better real life team than a fantasy team,
Yeah.
and I don't know that it's going to be that great of a real life team. So
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
They don't look terrible. I mean, they broke even last year. Do you guys think that they're going to do worse than last year, record wise?
I tend to think they will.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they surprise me. You know, I mean, this team won 107 games just a year ago or year before last. So, you know, who knows? Maybe they surprise me again. But it just seems like such a risky team, was so weirdly put together. I know they definitely got screwed by the Correa thing, especially because it made it impossible for them to like pivot and sign Dansby Swanson or someone like that. So I think this is still a team in kind of rebuild mode. I think the 107 wins, it gave people some weird false hopes because it kind of came out of nowhere. So I think, you know, stick with the plan, keep rebuilding his farm system. They'll be fine long term. But no, I'd be surprised if they even finish third in this division.
Yeah, I kind of echo those sentiments as well. Like I'm shooting for the stars. Obviously, I'd love everything about winning all the games, but realistically, they're gonna have to run as pure can be. Like avoid the injuries. The platoons are gonna have to work perfectly. Jock might have to hit 30 home runs. Like there's just so many things that have to take place for it to work. It could happen, but you have to. It doesn't happen that often to have everything work out perfectly in a 162 game season. And I'm hoping for the best, but I'm being realistic as well.
Yeah, there's probably no playoff aspirations for this team, but I mean, despite the fact that they're not the most interesting team for fantasy, there's still a couple of more names who might be a little bit interesting. Second in the lineup, or projected a bad second, is Mike Yastrzemski. Projections are not bad on him. If you look at ATC, 19 homers, 5 steals. The batting average is not expected to be too great. Any interest in Mike Yastrzemski, Bubba?
Kind of. Like I'm not in love with it. It's if you're in a deeper league and you're looking for like later outfield help, an ADP of 437, it's got some appeal. Yaz is only like a couple years removed like from hitting 25 home runs, hitting 224 year before that in the shortened season at 297. The BABIP's been down tremendously the last 2 years, and he's a guy that will benefit from the shift. I know like we're still speculating, and maybe it's still pure speculation, but he's a heavy pull ground ball guy, and that could help him a bit, get him on base towards the top of that order. Hopefully the power comes back. That's what you really care about, but he still has decent OBP skills. I think there's still 20 home runs in that bat. Even the projections got him between 18 and 21. It's just a matter of can he get that average up? I think it's definitely going to rebound in a nice way with the shift being gone. How much? That's the $1 million question. But if you're looking for outfield help after pick 400, I don't hate it with Yaz. I think there's still something there. He is, going to be 32, but I think there's something there. They want to play him every day, so you got that going for you.
Surprising that he's 32 years old. It feels like he's younger, but it is he is 32. I think it's because he came
Baltimore legend.
He came up a little bit later, debuted a little bit later in his career than most people do. Bubba, where are you at on Mike Yastrzemski?
Well, I'm Justin, but I mean, I think he's fine. Like where he's going, he doesn't really hurt you. Because I mean, most likely you're only taking him in a deep 15 team mix or a draft champions. And I think he, where he's going, he could probably be a cheap source of runs. I think he's going to bat fairly high up in that lineup. And he is going to play every day because the one thing we don't talk about enough in fantasy is defense. And he's the only outfielder who can play it on this team, other than Austin Slater. But you've got guys in the corners who are going to be potentially real deficits in terms of their defense for this team. This was the worst outfield defense in baseball last year. So I think he is going to play every day. Is he going to be like a major breakout again? No. I think he's fine. He is what he is. Maybe we do see a little extra power this year, but and maybe he does benefit from the shift not being as drastic this year, but he's fine.
Yeah, maybe not the most exciting player. Maybe there's a chance he can get back to what he did a couple of years ago, but not somebody that you should be targeting. And in your more shallow leagues, he's more of a deeper league guy. Justin, to throw it back to you here, Mitch Haniger, the new addition to the team. He had a down year last year, but he was also injured for quite a bit of the season. If you look back to 2021, he played the whole year. He had 39 homers, 110 runs, and 100 RBIs. Can we see something like that again from Mitch Haniger? I mean, he's pretty decently priced in drafts. Are you willing to take a chance on that happening again?
I have not been willing to take a chance on him in drafts, not because I dislike him. I love Mitch Haniger on a per plate appearance basis. I think he's a really, really talented outfielder. The problem is he doesn't stay on the field. He just gets hurt all the damn time. And now he's in a situation in San Francisco because they brought back Jock Peterson too and have Michael Conforto that he really needs to play the field pretty regularly for this team. And I think that just opens him up to getting injured more often, especially in an outfield that isn't as easy to play in right field as other places. So I'm a little skeptical that he's going to make it through a full season, and therefore I haven't drafted him. But I think the price is fine. This is a guy who was a top 150 pick, I think, going into last season. So I don't mind the price at all. I think I would take the gamble on him in kind of a shallower fab league, but in your deeper mixed or in a draft and hold, I'm probably staying away because I think there's a chance that he's going to miss a large portion of the season again.
Bubba, what do you think?
Similar to Justin, I'm not, I guess, as pessimistic on it, but I agree with what he said. There's definite concerns when it comes to Haniger's health, but the 2 years he stayed healthy, he's been a game changer for fantasy. So if you want to take the risk on him, you're going to get a ton of power because I don't care if it's San Francisco or in Seattle. That's totally fine. The defense is less than ideal. I could see him getting stuck in triples alley and ending the season. But it's one of those, if you're looking for some later power in the outfield, I get it. If you're just looking for later power, Rowdy Tellez is going out at the same time as him. I'd rather have Rowdy. But if you're willing to take the risk on Haniger, I get it. And that's where, to Justin's point, much better a pick in a shallow league than in a deeper league where you can have the replacement value around to replace Mitch Haniger. So I don't dislike him. It's not, I think I've got him in one or two of my handful of leagues, but it's not, I'm not making a point to go get him.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Hoping for what he could do with 2021, but realistically, even the projections are already expecting about 120 games or so. That might be a best case scenario for him at the end of the day, unfortunately. But if we keep going to the middle third of the order, Jock Peterson, who seems to go very hot and very cold, depending on what time of year it is, very randomly going on little streaks and ending up at the end of the season, usually producing a decent line, but it does come at the expense of certain weeks, specifically in your head-to-head leagues. Bubba, what are your thoughts on Jock Peterson for this season?
I'm always torn on Jock Jams here. That I like him a lot. The powers were legit. 23 homers last year. Projections even have him for that again. The average, I wouldn't expect 274, probably back to his 240-ish. Makes more sense. bright side is similar to the Thyro, not as much as I love Thyro, but they're trying to play him at first base to have a backup to Lamont Wade because Wade's always hurt. Like if something were to happen to Wade, you could have Jock playing outfield DH and first base a lot, so they're going to keep him on the field. They even started to let him play versus lefties a bit last year, which was big. That kept him in the lineups. That was always the bugaboo, is he'd sit a lot versus lefties. I haven't gone all in on him the way other people have. I like him. I think he's good. Honestly, I'd rather probably gamble on Yaz 200 picks later than take Jock. But I'm not like against Jock Peterson. It's just not a guy I'm in love with.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Justin, are you interested in Jock Peterson right now?
I mean, not really. I don't love these guys that strictly platoon, and that's what Peterson's going to do. I know they're talking about doing the play him at first thing, which I mean to me I guess doesn't make a ton of sense necessarily. But
it's because Wade's always hurt.
Yeah, and they want to unclog that DH spot if possible too, to put other guys there and improve their outfield defense. I mean, for what he is, he's fine. He's a guy who can hit potentially 30 home runs in spite of the fact that he's a strong side platoon guy, but he's never been able to hit lefties, and he's not going to. I know he's come into shape in the quote unquote best shape of his life, which I never believe. So, like, we're not going to see like an uptick in stolen bases or anything. He is what he is. He's a really good, strong side platoon bat. If your league calls for that, he makes a lot of sense. NL only 15-team mix. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, and those daily changes leagues, I like to play in a lot of daily changes leagues. You just put him in there against right-handed pitching. If it's a weekly league, you do run the risk of maybe he plays only 2 or 3 times. I like to mix it up, a little bit of daily, a little bit of weekly, but definitely more appealing when you can change him out when there's a lefty on the mound, and he probably won't even be in the lineup that day. But if we keep going to number 5 in the order, it's Michael Conforto, and it's hard to really gauge what exactly he's going to be after not playing last year. Justin, what are your thoughts on Conforto? The price is about in the 250 range right now. I feel like it's going to keep going a little bit up and up as we get closer to draft season. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it could be going up 50 picks as of next week, right? We see him in a game, hit a bomb or something like that, and all of a sudden the Michael Conforto truthers are going to be out and about. I have stayed away from him all draft season because of the injury risk. I mean, it's a guy that we have not seen play in quite a long time. So until I see him play, I'm probably out. And after I see him play, if he shows me something that makes him worth drafting, I think everybody's going to be more excited than I am. So I'm unlikely to end up with Michael Conforto on any teams this year, and I'm okay with that. I'd rather miss out this year, and then I can buy back in next year.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. What are your thoughts, Bubba?
Yeah, one thing I always like say is I'm okay being wrong on a person. I'll eat that L if that's what it takes. I would be happier than happy to be wrong on Michael Conforto. I'm not going to draft him right now because even like the reports about his health are still mixed right now, how healthy his shoulder is. Like I haven't heard anybody say it's 100% ever. And that's like not a comforting fact either, especially for a guy that missed an entire season because of it. So I'll pass. I hope he's healthy. I hope he hits 35 home runs. I don't like whatever he can do. I'm just going to pass on it this year and let someone else deal with it.
Yeah, if he can produce this year, maybe I'll buy back in next season. But as of right now, I mean, maybe if you're in a shallower league, like where he's going, he might be like your last pick kind of range there in the 250, 260 range, maybe because you have replacement value. But I'm not in love with him for this season. He's not somebody who is a target of mine by any means. The next guy we're going to talk about, David Villar. I don't really know what to think about him. I've heard a lot of people talking him up recently over the last month or so. I've seen some tweets about him. Bubba, where are you at on David Villar right now?
Well, where I'm at on David Villar right now is the fact that his ADP is almost 600, and he should be the starting third baseman for the Giants, and that appeals to me in a big, big way. Now, will he be there the whole season? There's still J.D. Davis, but they're both right-handed, so let's figure that one out. So you can't use the platoon card there. The Giants wanted to be Villar. Villar in the minors has shown awesome power. He had 27 home runs in AAA last year to go with 9 in the bigs. He had 20 in 2021. He hit for average in the minors. Didn't really do it this last year. The biggest concern I have is the strikeout rate got up to 32% in his 52 games with the Giants, 181 plate appearances. It was 25% in 21 and 22 in the minors. So that's going to come back down. If it doesn't, then we are probably in trouble. But the power is legit. 224 ISO in a short period of time. It's kind of in line, if not a little worse, but still outstanding than his minor league numbers. The power plays, that is proven. Can he limit the strikeouts a little bit, bump the average to maybe, let's say, 250? And if he can do that, he's going to be a heck of a ball player, regardless of his ADP. I think he's a great play. But I think I'm very intrigued with David VR. We'll see how much legs that has, but at 26 years old, I think it's a good chance to see what he's got.
I'm just filtering in just the most recent 12 February drafts, and he's actually like going almost inside the top 500, sometimes as early as 440s. So he might be a bit of a helium guy, but still, regardless, if he shows any bit of that power that he had in the minors with the plate discipline, even though he's striking out a little bit more than we would want, the walk rates are 10%, sometimes even as high as 15% in AAA last season. So could be a big value there. Maybe even if you're in an OBP league, if he keeps that walk rate up. Justin, what are your thoughts on VR? Do you agree with Bubba?
I mean, where he's going, it's fine, right? Like he's, one of the last picks of a 15-team, 30-round draft or a draft champions type pick. So fine, yeah, take a gamble because there is a chance he is starting. Like I mentioned, the Giants don't have that depth in the infield that they used to have with Longoria and Belt and guys like that. So would it shock me if he's the opening day third baseman? No, it wouldn't. It also wouldn't shock me if he's part of just a really, really frustrating rotation at third base because they do have JD Davis. They got Wilmer Flores, who they just signed to a brand new 2-year extension. So I don't know that I buy his contact skills at all. Like, I mean, this is a guy who had a 75% zone contact. That is well below league average. And I mean, he's a guy who's had as high as like 18-19% swing strike rates in the minors. Like, I think he's a quad A player, to be quite honest. And he's probably too good for AAA. He's probably not good enough for the majors, but he may get an opportunity. And in deeper formats, you take that dart throw and hope it works out.
Interesting. I mean, if you're in one of those deeper leagues, if you're in like a 30-round draft, with your last pick, I don't think it hurts, but definitely an interesting point of view there that he might not actually potentially will be a major leaguer in the long run. It's interesting. But let's move on to another guy who has been a major leaguer for quite some time now. He's actually just 1 year removed from his best ever fantasy season, and that's Brandon Crawford. Now, this past season was nowhere near as good as 2021. But Justin, is there any chance that Brandon Crawford can maybe come back to life, or is he kind of no longer a fantasy asset in your eyes?
I mean, I think he makes sense in like a draft and hold, right? Because he's gonna play pretty much every day, as long as he's healthy. I mean, they may give him a few more days off just because he's old, but as long as he's healthy, he's gonna play. He's gonna play, and he's gonna play shortstop, and he can just compile. And there is that like 5% chance that he turns back into the player we saw a couple years ago. I don't think he's going to, but he makes this Giants team better from a defensive standpoint. So he's not losing time if he's healthy. So in NL only, in a draft and hold, makes a lot of sense. Anything else, he does not make any sense at all.
Bubba, where are you at?
Yeah, I completely agree with Justin. Like I've taken him as like my fourth shortstop in drafts and holds. Like it makes a ton of sense for that depth piece because he will play hopefully like 130 games or so. It's a matter of health. He had a bunch of injuries last year. Sometimes I feel like he got brought back too early and really didn't get to completely heal up. But defensively, he's a beast. I don't think we'll ever see that offensive season we saw 2 years ago ever again. He is going to be 37. He was pretty angry with the idea of them bringing in a shortstop and moving him to third base. He did not like that idea. So he gets to go back to shortstop, which will make him happy. At the same time, these are going to be like his twilight years with the Giants. So like his defense, deep leagues, he's got some viability. Otherwise, don't expect the moon from Brandon Crawford.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, especially at a position like shortstop where it is relatively deep. I don't think there's any need for him, especially in your shallow leagues. Draft and holds are different. Pretty much everybody with a pulse has viability, but a lot of people who are probably going to be listening, you play in your 12-team leagues. I don't think we've kind of seen the end of the Brandon Crawford value train. But projected about 8th in this lineup, Lamont Wade Jr. Bubba, you have any interest in Wade Jr. for this season?
I kind of liked him in years past. I'm not in love with him this year. So many injuries last year. They're like I said, they're trying different guys out at different positions to kind of already prepare themselves to not have Lamont available. he was a great story in 2021, but so was most of the Giants team that came out of nowhere to do things. I think Lamont's I guess you could use this term with most Giants. Okay, if you're in an NL only league or something, there's probably some legs to Lamont, but I really have no interest in Lamont Wade Jr.
Justin?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Bubba. I mean, it's in a daily moves format that's super, super deep. You can platoon him against righties at nighttime because he's great at nighttime.
Yes.
And that's about it. So, yeah, I honestly don't care about Lamont Wade from a fantasy perspective. Fun player to root for on your actual team, not the player you want on your fantasy team.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Now, the last guy projected to be in the starting lineup, and he will be in the starting lineup, that's Joey Bart, the backstop. Justin, we talked about him a couple weeks ago on Sleeper in the Bust. Neither of us were terribly interested in Bart. What are your thoughts on him this season, though, for people who might have not heard the last podcast we were on together?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who murders fastballs and can't hit anything else. It's just a massive problem when you get to the major league because not everybody is going to just throw at you fastballs. But he's a hard guy to really evaluate because I'm a fan and I watch so much of him. And there are times where I see him hit a ball and I go, "Oh man, that he is going to be a star." And then he has no idea what to do with a changeup or no idea what to do with a slider. And so he ends up hitting like 215 and, doesn't hit very many home runs because, pitchers have books on him. So until he makes massive changes with his ability to hit off speed and breaking stuff, I don't think anything's really going to change for him. Is there a possibility that he figures it out at some point and becomes a star? Absolutely. I'm just not betting the farm on it. I'd rather have him as a catcher 3 in a draft champions than a catcher 2 in any other format.
Yeah, I had him as my 30th catcher in my rankings, somebody like maybe at the very back end for a C2, but not somebody that you need to have on your roster by any means. He strikes out way too much for me to be really interested in him. Bubba, where are you at right now on Joey Bart?
Sounds like the Giants version of Pedro Serrano, by the way. Justin talks about him. So I'm not on Joey Bart right now for a couple of reasons. He's just, like Justin said, so inconsistently bad. It's crazy. Like, he does show us signs of life for like a week. And you're like, oh my goodness, this is going to be awesome. And then he disappears again. There's that. There's the rumblings. There's a 4-catcher race. I think part of that's to kind of put a spur under Joey Bart's butt to tell him, hey, it's still your job, kid, but the leash is very short. They did bring in Roberto Perez, who, there's a lot of veteran stuff there. And the one to watch is Blake Sable. I believe it's Sable, that he's a Rule 5 pick they picked up. A lot of glowing reports on Thursday from the beat reporters interviewing Kapler and Sable. He's been working with the pitchers all offseason. And Farhan even said, like, they want him to be a full-time catcher, not an outfielder. And he's a Rule 5 guy. So that comes into play as well. So there's a lot of things working against Joey Bart if he gets off to a slow start. And for that reason, I want nothing to do with him in fantasy right now.
Yeah, absolutely agree with both of you. He's not somebody that is on my radar at all. If you're in a 2-catcher league, you get stuck with him at the end, and that's, it is what it is. I think he'll probably get, a decent amount of playing time, but he's not really somebody that you need to be focused on at all. That's the end of the starting lineup. Now, in terms of the bench players, there's not really so much to be interested in. Maybe Wilmer Flores, maybe JD Davis. Bubba, do you have any interest in any of those guys?
I would love to be interested in JD Davis if I ever knew he'd actually play regularly. That's the conundrum. Like, everybody and their mom knows how hard he hits the ball, all these great things he does. It's playing time. If we knew he was locked into a job at least 5 out of 7 days a week, I'd be very interested in him. But I just can't be interested in any of them until I know that they're going to play.
Yeah. Wilmer Flores is being drafted like pretty high up too. Like, if you're talking about a DC, like almost inside the top 300, he's not projected to have a starting role. Maybe he'll, get some spots here and there throughout the infield because he can play all over the place. But I wouldn't be rushing to draft him, either of them, really. Justin, where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, I think Wilmer Flores is interesting, but not at his current price. He's going to play a fair amount. Like, he's going to spell everybody in that infield out. He'll play second base. Rashad will give Brandon Crawford a day off. He'll play third base. He'll play first base. He'll DH sometimes, but the price is too high, like you just mentioned. Austin Slater will steal 15 bags. You just will never know when. Yep. So it'll probably be on your bench if he's on your team or on the waiver wire, but he will steal some bases. And if the Giants are going to run the way that Kepler said, he's one of the few guys on this team who can run. So he's the guy to just kind of keep an eye on your waiver wire or in a draft and hold. But other than that, I don't really care.
Yeah, he's one of only 2 players by ATC projected to steal more than 10 bases. This team is not going to be particularly quick around the base paths. But that's pretty in-depth there in terms of the position players. In terms of the starting pitching, I love this rotation. I tweeted it out earlier. I love the Giants pitching in general whenever somebody new comes in there, or even players who've been there for a little while. They tend to be able to tinker with something. They rejuvenate a lot of arms. And I think that there's some potential with that for a couple of guys in this rotation. But let's start at the top with the pretty undisputed ace of this staff, and that's Logan Webb. Where are you at on Logan Webb right now, Bubba?
I'm a big fan. People will point to the strikeouts dropping this last year. That was in large part due to a pitch mix change that he made for, I don't know what reason, but it actually made him a better pitcher, if that makes sense. He actually got more ground balls. His ratios dropped a ton. If you look at his profile throughout the years, he's always tinkering with his pitch mix. So I wouldn't be surprised if he sees that and tinkers some more to get the strikeouts and swinging strikes back up. He's still super young. He went 192 innings last year, which is what you want to see. That helped him get to 15 wins. Basically a 3.03 ERA and 21.29 last year. So almost a below 3 ERA, but back-to-back seasons. Doesn't walk a ton of guys. If he gets get that strikeout rate back up, he'll be very, very solid, like ace material. The fact he doesn't strike guys out is what kind of drops him down a bit. But elite, like ground ball stuff, really, really, really good pitcher. So like almost a 57% ground ball rate. I'm a fan of that. So give me Logan Webb. I'll take him as my preferably SP3, but you might have to take him as an SP2 depending on what you're doing. But yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'd be fine with him as my SP2. Justin, you like Logan Webb this year?
Not at the cost. I mean, I love Logan Webb from a real life baseball perspective. I love him from a fantasy perspective, but I just love so many other pitchers more. The defense, like I said, has been one of the worst in baseball. Now you've got new shift rules that may hurt him as a ground ball guy. I don't necessarily think there's another level coming back. If the strikeouts could come back, I could look really silly, but I just at his price, I think he's going a little bit too high. So I'm probably going to pass this year on Logan Webb, unfortunately.
His strikeouts did drop quite a bit, going from 26% down to 20%. Now, in the early parts of his career, granted not massive sample sizes, he was closer to what he did last season in the between 19 and 21% range. So maybe that 26% K rate was a bit of an outlier for him. I think if you're looking for bulk, he's probably going to still give you 180 to 190 pretty solid innings, sub 4 ERA innings, but maybe he is going a little bit too high. I think that you might be onto something there at 114. There are a lot of pitchers that you can wait on this season that, are in this general range that I would like at least as much, if not more than Logan Webb. So it might be hard to actually pull the trigger on drafting him. In terms of the rest of this rotation, though, the next guy up is somebody that I think is consistently undervalued. That's Alex Cobb. I'm always a huge Alex Cobb guy. Justin, do you like Alex Cobb for this season?
I don't. And
Really?
I understand that, like, last year we had a million Alex Cobb is due. Alex Cobb's getting unlucky. Unluckiest pitcher in baseball, Alex Cobb. And we've gotten a few of them this year already, and people are like, he was unlucky. He's, due some positive regression and everything. But here's the thing. He wasn't that unlucky. The defense let him down. And what is the defense going to do this year but let him down again? I think he's probably going right where he should in drafts, but that doesn't mean he's undervalued. And people who are thinking they're getting the steal from Alex Cobb are going to be sorely mistaken when they have to go through the same frustrating things that he went through last year, where he just doesn't win games because the Giants let him down. He ends up having a way higher ERA and WHIP because the Giants let him down. I think the Giants are going to let him down again. And I think he's going to be, again, a guy you pick up on and off the waiver wire and gets articles written about how unlucky he's been.
And I will be one of the people writing those articles most likely, because that was me last season. I was all over him. He did, maybe it was the defense, but if you look at, the BABIP, and it does come back to the defense, but you can't help but feel sorry for him. It was Nick Pollock who had a video. It was on I forget where he had it. I guess it was on Pitcherless YouTube, where he just breaks down in that bat, or it was actually a sequence of at bats where there's like 3 separate errors in the field behind Cobb, and then it's a grand slam, and it's just, oh my God, it's something out of a cartoon. It was really, really bad. I'd like to hope that he can maybe be a bit better, but even last year it was a 3.73 ERA, even with the bad left on base percentage, with the bad BABIP. Bubba, are you a fan of Cobb for this season, or are you more on the side of Justin here?
Well, I'm not on the side of Justin. I'm also not the guy that's in love with, I have to have Alex Cobb. Like, I've drafted Alex Cobb when it's been appropriate for my builds, because like I do agree the ratios still aren't going to kill you. Maybe the Giants figure out how to, field a normal ground ball. I don't know. One thing I do like about Cobb the last 2 years, he's really risen that strikeout rate up. That's been big with the splitter and everything. So he's at least adding that to you. The cold water I'll spill on this, besides the defense thing, before last season, he hadn't thrown 150 innings since 2018. That's my biggest concern with Alex Cobb. He's been an injury risk majority of his time, and he was hurt a little bit last year. That's why he only played in 140 or 149 innings. So that's probably my biggest concern with Alex Cobb. If he can give you a 150 plus, I'd be totally fine with this ADP. But between the defense and the potential innings concerns, don't force it. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I'm always been a bit partial to him. So, I mean, I can understand the skepticism with the defense. He isn't the youngest guy in the world. He's 35 now. So, I like what he's doing with the strikeout rate. I hope it sticks. I like to think with this organization it can, but it does come with a bit of risk. And I guess, when you're talking about the defense, that kind of would apply to every single member of this rotation. That wouldn't just be an Alex Cobb thing. The next couple of guys we're going to talk about are new additions. Sean Manaea. He's the SP3 as of right now, according to Fangraphs. Where are you at on Sean Manaea, Bubba? I'm pretty interested right now at his current price, but what are your thoughts?
I've been an anti-Sean Manaea guy my entire career. The move to San Francisco is interesting. Again, the defense is a concern. Manaea is that guy that either does like an amazing start out of nowhere that you don't expect, or he gives up like 4 home runs, and it's just the worst night of your life when you roster Sean Manaea. And for that reason, I just kind of avoid the whole Sean Manaea show. Like, he gets home run to fly ball rates and all that good stuff. He'll have his walk issues from time to time. I'm just not interested in that. Maybe the Giants can use some of their Giants magic on him. Who knows? But I will pass on Sean Manaea and be gainfully wrong if he does very well.
Justin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Bubba on this one. I've liked him more than probably Bubba has off and on. I see the skills. I actually really like his mechanics when he's pitching well, but he struggles to stay healthy. He struggles with inconsistency. And while the Giants have been really, really good at kind of rehabbing some of these washed veterans, that defense behind him is going to be so bad that I worry that he's going to be unlucky too. And I think I'd rather go for the other guys kind of at the back end of this rotation, like Ross Stripling, that I think is just a little bit more interesting to me.
100%.
I mean, I'll defer to you guys because this is why I talk to you guys, because you guys follow the team a lot closer than I do. I look at the last couple seasons: 158 innings, 179 innings. The previous season was the shortened year. He made 11 starts. Health hasn't been a recent concern. He did miss time in 2019, but I don't know. I think it's just something with this organization, and I see what they did with Gosman and what they did with Rodon even. And there's so many examples of guys coming in who were not, Rodon was good going in there, but there's so many examples of guys who were not the greatest going into their time in San Francisco who came out looking really good. I think it's more the draft price that I'm kind of interested in. Round pick 300. I like him, but we'll agree to disagree there. I'm going to take him in whatever leagues that we're in together, Justin. Let's go in the same TGFBI league together, and we'll sort this one out through that way. But next up, someone who's going the exact same price, literally within a 0.5 ADP of each other, at least in these most recent drafts. Ross Stripling, also going right on pick 300. Justin, are you in on Ross Stripling this year?
Yeah, I like Ross Stripling. I think the question becomes, how many innings do we get from him? But I think where he's going, he's a nice little gamble. He's also a guy that if he ends up moving into the bullpen, you don't worry about dropping too much. You can try to get him back on the waiver wire later. But I mean, he showed really, really good skills as a starter. And if the Giants commit to him as a starter, which it appears they're going to do, I think he's the one guy kind of at the back end of this rotation that could really jump up. And kind of we could see another step with, Alex Wood has injury history. that kind of scares you. Manaea has got inconsistency and injury history that kind of scares you. But Ross Stripling, I think he's just kind of a guy who's never had a real shot to be a dude in the rotation, and he's going to get that in San Francisco, which is a great place and spot for him. So yeah, of the guys in kind of this rotation, he's kind of my favorite to target on draft night.
I agree there. I was very sad the Blue Jays did not make an effort to bring him back as the fifth starter. I thought it would have made a lot of sense. I don't think it was too expensive, the deal he got. It was 2 years, $25 million, not expensive at all. And he was fantastic. There was times you could argue last season he was the MVP of the Blue Jays at times, the way he kept the team together. He was went deep into games. He was, very good command. He wasn't, striking out a ton of batters. He wasn't the greatest fantasy asset, but he gave you 10 wins. He even had a save, 3.01 ERA. He was fantastic for you. Bubba, are you interested in him now that he is in San Francisco?
Oh, definitely. I'm a big fan of what Stripling did last year. I had him rostered in a lot of places. The only caveats I'll mention, he lowered the walk rate a ton. Hopefully that can sustain. The home run rate dropped tremendously as well. Hopefully that sustains. I think it will. And he doesn't go super deep into games. Like you're hoping for 5, hopefully 6 innings with Stripling. So that's the only real dilemma with him. But again, at his price and what he can bring to your team, I'm a fan of Ross Stripling in a big way.
I love him. I'm very much in on him, specifically at the price, 300. People don't seem to be that interested in him. Maybe he'll go up a little bit, but he's not somebody that I expect to be a helium guy by any means. He's not somebody who's going to have a lot of hype around him, I don't think. So you'll probably get him around this price, and I think you should take advantage of him where you can. But rounding out the rotation, somebody that I think a lot of teams would be pretty happy to have as their number 5 starter, Alex Wood. What are we thinking about Alex Wood for this upcoming season here?
No, please.
No? No.
Too much injury. Like he's a good streamer if you can get him on a streaming situation. I can't roster him.
No? Justin, what do you think about Alex Wood?
I love Alex Wood on a per inning plate appearance, but he falls in kind of the same category as our good friend Manaea, who, like I said, struggles with consistency, struggles with injury at times, and also our good friend Alex Cobb, who struggles with the Giants defense. And I think that's probably the biggest of the three, but the injury is another big part of it. So it's hard because he's one of those guys you can only really take in a deep league, but you can't really take him in a draft and hold because you actually need guys who are going to stay healthy at the back end of your rotation in a draft and hold. So he probably is best suited for like a last pick-ish in like a 15-team mixed fab league where you can drop him, or NL only where you can drop him or put him on the IL when he gets hurt. But yeah, I'm not super enthused. Love him as a player, love him as a skills guy, but ultimately not probably going to draft him a ton this year.
Yeah, he'll have some really strong starts. I'm not going to doubt that, but it's knowing when to start and sit him is going to be the big problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, the last couple of seasons, he's outperformed. His actual metrics, his pitching indicators were a lot better. Specifically this past season, he had a 5.10 ERA, a 3.76 FIP. It's really unfortunate because he is a lot better than that ERA suggests, but it's going to affect all these San Francisco Giants pitchers, like you guys have mentioned, Justin, specifically there, about the defense and how it's going to hinder all of them. And that's not even talking about the health concerns that we might have with him there. So probably somebody that you should be staying away from. Not the most expensive at pick 338. I mean, you could go either way with it, really. If you're in a shallower league, there's no chance I'm going to be drafting him. He'll probably be more of a streamer. He has a 2-step or what have you. Then you'd be more interested in him there. But let's move on to the bullpen. And we actually have a comment in the chat from our friend Britton Allen, who has just started a podcast here at Sports Ethos called It's Gone. It is fantastic. You guys should be checking it out. It's in your podcast feeds. You can find it on both of our Twitters. But Britton's comment here is regarding the closer situation. Camilo Doval and Taylor Rogers. I mean, a lot of people think it'll be Camilo Doval. Britton here is saying, gents, I think Rogers is the closer. Doval's walk rate in 2029 was 3.99, or walk per 9 was 3.99, which isn't below average. It's much worse. He had a 7.04 walk per 9 in AAA in 2021. Rogers had a better K per 9 and walk rate. What are your thoughts here? Let's start with you, Justin. What are your thoughts on the closer situation?
I think Britton's on to something. I don't think he's quite right, though. I think this is going to be kind of a committee. I do not think Doval is going to be the quote-unquote guy. If you watch Giants games like Bubba and I watch Giants games, you watch the Giants try to give that job to everybody but Camilo Doval last year. I mean, like, I got 4 save opportunities and I could barely make it to the mound myself walking out there. But at the end of the day, he's the guy who did it. Like, right? Like they didn't want to give it to him, but he ended up taking it because he was actually really, really good. I don't think they're going to just pull the rug from under him, but I do think they gave Taylor Rogers money, and I think they're going to share this job, and they're going to play matchups and kind of best guy. A month or two into the season may end up taking over, and that could be Doval. But I don't want to pay the price for him, considering I think there's some risk to that role. I'd much rather take the gamble that it's Rogers going much, much later than Duvall going quite a bit earlier. But ultimately, I'm hoping I'm not having to rely on either for most of my drafts.
Come on, Duvall is still going as a top 90 pick, where you're getting Rogers outside the top 300. Bubba, you're thinking the same thing there as Justin?
Yeah. Toby and I just talked about this the other night on our relief pitcher preview, that Taylor Rogers is a really, really strong value, and especially drafts and olds, or even if you want to spec late in deeper leagues, because I think if anything, it's like 65-35 Duvall, maybe 60-40. And if Duvall struggles at all, Rogers could take it for sure. So, Rogers had his great time in San Diego. He also scuffled in Milwaukee. Let's not pretend he had a great year, but we've seen Rogers do it. He's got the pedigree between Minnesota and everything. Duvall, those walks can come up to haunt you in a big way, especially with that bad defense. Justin, I remember watching some games where it was like a walk, a bad error by the third baseman, a bloop single. It was just every possible thing that could go wrong. It went wrong. So I think it's Duvall's the main man, but he's not the man. So as Sarah Sanchez would say, she's not the capital T man. So I would be hesitant to go that early on Camilo Duvall.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I don't think there's any need to be drafting him there. If you're taking him, it's probably because you panicked and a lot of closers went off the board right in front of him, and you just see the ADP. And a lot of people will see ADP and kind of be beholden to that in their drafts and see somebody going off the board there. I don't think he should be a top 100 pick at this point. You could even, I just can't see myself taking him even, top 125, 130. I could keep pushing him down probably if I keep thinking about it. Not somebody that I'm really going to be too interested in. Anybody else in the bullpen you guys think might have some kind of chance to compete for saves? Let's say, there is an injury to both of these guys, or one of them gets traded or something. Anybody else that might be able to, a speculative draft pick in a DC or anything like that?
Brebbia, they're a big fan of him. He had some moments at times last year. He could be a guy. It could be someone from the minors even that comes up and makes some noise. We have some hard throwers in the minors right now that could get a shot. We've seen that in recent years with the Giants. They brought up some guys from down below. So anybody on the current roster, I would say it's Brebbia. Maybe Luke Jackson. He's got TJ. I don't know when he's going to come back, but I wouldn't hold your breath on much else in the actual starting rotation bullpen area.
Justin, any thoughts there?
For the bullpen, not really. I think for the starting rotation, you start having some interesting conversations. About. Anthony Descalfani has been really good when he's healthy, and he's supposedly going to enter the season healthy. I know he's kind of the odd man out right now, but this is a rotation with a ton of injury risk. So, at some point, he's going to get a shot back into the rotation. And Kyle Harrison is a really, really interesting starting pitching prospect, which the team has already said they expect him to be up this year.
For 110 innings or something. They're expecting a lot from him.
So, I like Kyle Harrison, especially in kind of draft and hold. I don't know that I want him necessarily in a fab league. I'd rather just bid on him in fab and not have to worry about when he's coming up. Yep. But in a draft and hold, I'll take the gamble and hope that he's up sooner rather than later, because this rotation, while it is a very interesting rotation, is built on a lot of guys who aren't often healthy staying healthy.
Yeah, on that Harrison point, Logan Webb said he worked out with him most of the offseason, and very impressed with what he saw from the kid. He's only 20, I believe. He's super young still, so he's a big one. Another guy to mention besides Disco is Jacob Junis is there too, and he looked really good when he found the rotation last year. So they're all going to get a handful of starts throughout the year to keep an eye on, but it's been an interesting year in San Francisco.
Got a question here from Britton. How many innings does Ronald Guzman have this year? I didn't realize Ronald Guzman was he on AAA? Or is he on the team? I don't know. Do you guys know?
Is he pitching now? Is this a thing?
Yeah, I have
I
no
know.
idea.
I saw that they signed him, but I thought he was going to still play first base. Apparently on roster resource they have him as a first baseman, left fielder, and relief pitcher.
Wow.
That's funny.
Like he's projected to be in AAA, so and he's out of options. So I mean, I'll say he throws 2 1/3.
I'll take the under.
Yeah, I will take the under too. I don't see him. I don't see him doing much this season.
Let's just say if he's up, I won't see those pitches. So it's okay.
That's great. The last thing I want to ask you, we already touched on Harrison, but any other prospects do you think might be able to come up this year? Luciano, Matos, maybe. Probably not Matos, but any good buddy in the minor leagues? Any interest there?
It's bad right now, man. Luciano's already still recovering from his injury. He's not looking great. Luis Gonzalez is a little banged up. He's technically in the minors. He's not a prospect, but he's a guy I actually don't mind in deeper DCs if he wants some outfield depth. He's actually looked really good last year. But Helio Ramos, man, he is not the guy we thought he was going to be. There's still time, obviously, to hopefully get there, but I don't know. I'm not the biggest prospect guy, but from what I've seen from Giants reports and everything, I'm not too optimistic on the prospect front at this point in time. Like I said, I sat next to James Anderson at the Home Run Derby and FPAS, and he basically brought to light everything I already thought was there, but he told me to my face that the Giants farm system sucks. That was the nicest way to say. He wasn't that blunt about it because he's James Anderson. He's a nice human being, but it came down to the Giants farm system kind of sucks.
Justin, any prospects?
No, not for this year. I mean, outside of Kyle Harrison, he's the only guy.
Harrison's the dude.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys making this work, getting you both together here. I know it's kind of tricky to schedule guests, let alone 2 at the same time, getting everybody together. So I really appreciate you guys making it all work here. Thank you so much for being here.
Anytime.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. You guys want to just remind everybody once more where you can be found? Justin, why don't we start with you?
You can find me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. I'm writing at Fangraphs and Fantasy Pros. I'm on Sleeper on the Bus, TGFBI, and Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast. Potapalooza is coming up weekend after next, and then TGFBI starts. You can donate to win prizes for Potapalooza. Some pretty cool stuff like memorabilia and T-shirts and memberships to a bunch of different places in the industry, things like that. You can do that by via my PayPal, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com, or my Venmo at Justin Salinger. Every $1 gets you a raffle ticket. And for every $1,000 you raise, I'm going to give away a spot in TGFBI next year as well. So if you want to get in TGFBI, try to win it via Potapalooza or win it via Satellite League, which are drafting already. You can go to TGFBI.com to sign up for those.
That's awesome. I'm going to give away a year-long Sports Ethos membership there. You guys should definitely be participating. We are going to be having a lot of fun there. Bubba, what do you got going on, man, with Gaining the Edge and everything else? What is happening in your world?
Yeah, on Twitter at BDentrek, BDENTREK. Gaining the Edge on patreon.com/GTE Fantasy. Gaining the Edge Fantasy with Curlin, Simeon, and Jorge Montanez doing stuff over there. Lots of fun, a lot of great content those guys are pumping out. But Baseball HQ, Fantasy Pros, all that good stuff. Bench with Bubba, Bubba in the Bloom, Bubba in the Bat Flip. Just follow me on Twitter. You'll get all the good stuff there.
We're talking with 2 people who have their footprints and their fingerprints all over the fantasy baseball industry, and they are 2 of the absolute best. I really appreciate them taking the time. You guys should definitely be checking out their work. If you want to check out my work, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at JoeOrrico99. But more specifically, go ahead and check out Ethos Fantasy BB. We got a lot of stuff dropping over there, tons of articles every single day, and my rankings are going to be up there over the weekend, so definitely make sure you are checking it out. Until next time, guys, take care, and we will see you tomorrow.